Don't be dramatic, Julliette. It's just one night with a woman I've dreamt about since our marriage, my husband said. I replied, okay. The next morning, his lover's CEO called him, screaming, our entire merger just collapsed. Who exactly did you say your wife is? You know that moment when your husband asks for permission to cheat on you, and you say okay because you're honestly curious to see how spectacularly he'll destroy his own life? Yeah, that was Tuesday. Don't be dramatic, Julliette. It's just one night with a woman I've dreamt about since our marriage, Marcus said, not even looking up from his phone as he straightened his tie in our bedroom mirror. The audacity was breathtaking, really. 7 years of marriage, and he'd finally worked up the courage to ask for a hall pass like we were in some twisted high school relationship. I was folding laundry on our bed, my hands working automatically through his expensive dress shirts while my brain processed what he just said. The fabric felt smooth and cool against my fingers, a stark contrast to the heat rising in my chest. But instead of screaming or throwing something, which, let's be honest, he was probably expecting, I just said, okay. The look on his face was priceless. His reflection in the mirror went slack-jawed for a split second before he recovered, clearing his throat and adjusting his collar with renewed confidence. Really? Just like that? Just like that. I shrugged, continuing to fold his shirts with the same methodical precision I'd used to build my consulting business from nothing. Have fun, Marcus. He kissed my cheek before leaving, his cologne lingering in the air long after I heard his BMW pull out of our driveway. Expensive cologne for an expensive mistake, I thought, smoothing down the last shirt and placing it in his drawer with deliberate care. See, here's what Marcus didn't know about his wife of 7 years. I wasn't just Julliette Reynolds, the quiet woman who made excellent dinner parties and remembered everyone's birthdays. I was Julliette Chen Reynolds, and the Chen part of that hyphenated name carried weight in circles Marcus couldn't even imagine. My father built Chen Dynamics from a single shipping container in Long Beach into one of the largest logistics empires on the West Coast. Not flashy tech money or Hollywood glitter, the kind of old, quiet wealth that moves cargo ships and owns the ports they dock in. The kind of money that doesn't need to prove itself with gold toilets or reality TV shows. Marcus knew my father was in shipping, the same way people know the ocean is wet without really grasping its depth. He'd met Daddy exactly 3 times in 7 years, and each time, Daddy had been perfectly polite, perfectly forgettable. A soft-spoken man in an unremarkable suit who asked about Marcus's work in mergers and acquisitions with what seemed like mild, grandfatherly interest. What Marcus didn't realize was that those casual questions about his work weren't small talk. Daddy had been taking notes. I spent that evening doing something I hadn't done in years. I called my father. Julliette? His voice was warm but surprised. We texted regularly, but phone calls were reserved for emergencies or holidays. Everything all right, sweetheart? I need to know about Meridian Industries, I said, settling into my home office chair with a cup of tea. The room was decorated in soft grays and whites, nothing that would suggest its occupant had access to enough capital to buy and sell small countries. Specifically, their proposed merger with Blackstone Holdings. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could practically hear the gears turning in his mind, connecting dots I'd never asked him to connect before. That's Marcus's company, he said finally. It wasn't a question. The merger, Daddy. What do you know about it? Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted into what I privately called his boardroom mode, still warm, but with an edge of steel underneath. 60% of Meridian's shipping logistics run through our ports in Long Beach, Oakland, and Seattle. The other 40% depends on rail lines we have significant influence over. He cleared his throat delicately. Why are you asking, sweetheart? I told him about Marcus's request, about the woman he'd been dreaming about since our wedding day, about the permission he'd asked for like I was some kind of benevolent dictator dispensing favors. I kept my voice steady and factual, the same tone I used when presenting quarterly reports to difficult clients. When I finished, the silence stretched so long I wondered if the call had dropped. I see, Daddy said finally. And you said yes. I said yes. Interesting choice. There was something in his voice I couldn't quite identify. Not anger, exactly. More like anticipation. You know, I've been meaning to review our contracts with Meridian. Some of the terms seem a bit outdated. Oh? Especially the exclusivity clauses. And the penalty structures for breach of contract. Very outdated indeed. I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Not guilt, Marcus had made his bed, quite literally. But a kind of focused clarity I hadn't experienced since my early days building my business from nothing. When do these reviews typically happen? I asked. Well, normally we'd give 60 days notice before any significant changes. But in cases where we discover irregularities in our partner company's leadership integrity, we can invoke immediate renegotiation clauses. He paused. Of course, we'd need evidence of such irregularities. Of course. Photos tend to be quite compelling evidence. Especially time-stamped photos from recognizable locations. I almost smiled. I imagine they would be. The Meridian merger is scheduled to finalize Friday morning, isn't it? I seem to recall Marcus mentioning that at Christmas dinner. Yes, it is. Well, I suppose we'll see how tomorrow goes. Give my love to Marcus, won't you? After we hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, staring out at the perfectly manicured garden Marcus paid our landscaper too much money to maintain. The evening light was fading, turning everything golden and soft, and I found myself thinking about the early days of our marriage when I genuinely believed we were building something together. I'd been 25 then, fresh out of my MBA and hungry to prove myself outside of my father's shadow. Marcus had been charming and ambitious, a rising star at Blackstone Holdings with a corner office and a 5-year plan that included marriage, children, and a house in the suburbs. He pursued me with a single-minded determination he brought to hostile takeovers, and I'd been flattered by his attention. What I hadn't realized until much later was that he'd done his research before asking me out. Not on me, exactly, but on my last name. Chen Dynamics wasn't exactly a secret, but we weren't flashy about it either. Marcus had figured out the connection within our first 3 dates, and suddenly his interest in my family business made perfect sense. The irony was that I'd spent our entire relationship trying to keep those two parts of my life separate. I wanted him to love me for me, not for the shipping empire I'd never asked to inherit. I paid for our dates with my consulting income, insisted we live in a house I could afford on my salary alone, and never once mentioned that I had a trust fund sitting in investments that I'd never touched. But Marcus, brilliant Marcus, had been playing a longer game than I'd given him credit for. He'd been waiting for the perfect moment to cash in on his investment in me, and apparently, that moment was now. My phone buzzed around 10:30. A text from Marcus, amazing dinner. Don't wait up. I typed back, have fun. Sleep tight. Then I opened my laptop and started going through my old files. See, the thing about being a management consultant is that you develop certain skills. Research skills. Investigation skills. The ability to dig through layers of corporate structure and find the connections that aren't supposed to be visible. I built my reputation on being thorough, on finding the problems other people missed. It took me about an hour to map out exactly how Meridian Industries was connected to Chen Dynamics. Marcus hadn't been entirely wrong in his calculations. Marrying me did give him access to a valuable network. But he'd made one crucial error in his assessment. He'd assumed I was powerless. By midnight, I had a complete dossier on Meridian's operations, their dependencies, their vulnerabilities. More importantly, I had a clear picture of what would happen if Chen Dynamics decided to pull their support. The merger would collapse. Instantly. Blackstone Holdings was acquiring Meridian specifically for their logistics capabilities. Take away their port access, their shipping contracts, their rail partnerships, and they became just another mid-sized company with decent quarterly reports and no particular competitive advantage. I closed my laptop and went to bed, sleeping better than I had in months. Marcus came home around 6 in the morning, trying to be quiet as he slipped into our bedroom. I was already awake, sitting by the window with my coffee and watching the sunrise paint our garden in shades of pink and gold. He looked rumpled and satisfied, his shirt wrinkled and his hair messed up in a way that screamed I just had the best night of my life. Morning, I said pleasantly. How was dinner? He had the grace to look slightly sheepish. Good. Really good. Thank you for, being understanding. Of course. I took a sip of my coffee. I'm happy you got what you wanted. Something in my tone must have caught his attention because he paused in the middle of loosening his tie, studying my face with a careful attention he usually reserved for contract negotiations. You're being weird, he said finally. Am I? I thought I was being supportive. He shook his head and disappeared into our bathroom. I heard the shower turn on and used the time to get dressed for work. I had meetings all morning, including a conference call with a potential new client that I was particularly excited about. My phone rang at exactly 9:15. Julliette Reynolds speaking. Julliette, it's Marcus. His voice was tight, strained. Are you free to talk? I was in my car, driving to my first client meeting of the day. The morning traffic was heavy, giving me plenty of time to chat. Sure, what's up? Something's wrong. Really wrong. I just got to the office and there's a message from Chen Dynamics on my desk. They're calling an emergency review of all contracts with Meridian. Effective immediately. I made a sympathetic noise. That sounds stressful. Stressful? Julliette, they control 60% of our shipping capacity. If they pull out, the merger is dead. 7 months of work, down the drain. Blackstone will drop us like a hot potato. Oh no. Do they say why they're reviewing? Something about leadership integrity concerns and irregularities in partner company management. I don't understand it. We've never had problems with Chen Dynamics before. Your father's always been perfectly reasonable. Traffic was moving now, and I had to focus on merging onto the highway. Maybe it's just routine? Large companies review contracts all the time. On the day before a major merger? Julliette, this isn't routine. This is surgical. Someone specifically targeted us, and the timing is too perfect to be coincidental. I pulled into the parking garage of my client's building, taking my time to find a spot. What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm trying to reach someone at Chen Dynamics, but they're not taking my calls. Even the executives I've worked with before are suddenly unavailable. His voice cracked slightly. This could destroy everything, Julliette. My career, our future, everything. I'm sorry, Marcus. That sounds awful. There was a pause. Then, would you be willing to call your father? Just to see if he knows anything about this? And there it was. The real reason for his call. I could do that, I said slowly, pretending to consider it. Though I'm not sure how much influence I have. Daddy keeps his business pretty separate from family stuff. Please, Julliette. I'm desperate here. I checked my watch. I'm about to go into a meeting, but I'll try to reach him afterward. Okay? Thank you. Thank you so much. I love you. Love you too, I said automatically, and hung up. My client meeting went brilliantly. 3 hours of discussing supply chain optimization for a boutique hotel group, exactly the kind of detailed operational work I thrived on. By the time I got back to my car, I had 6 missed calls from Marcus and twice as many text messages, each one more frantic than the last. The final text, sent just 10 minutes earlier, made me smile. Julliette, please call your father. Meridian CEO is in emergency meetings. Someone leaked photos of their executives at strip clubs and massage parlors. Board is furious. Call me back ASAP. I didn't call Marcus back. Instead, I drove to my father's office. Chen Dynamics occupied 4 floors of a glass tower in downtown Long Beach, with views of the port that had made our family fortune. I'd spent countless childhood afternoons in these offices, doing homework in conference rooms while Daddy finished meetings, learning the business through osmosis and observation. The receptionist recognized me immediately. Miss Chen. What a lovely surprise. Your father's in his office, go right up. Daddy was standing by his floor-to-ceiling windows when I knocked, hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at the maze of cargo containers and loading cranes that stretched to the horizon. He was smaller than Marcus, barely 5'8" in his perfectly tailored suit, but he commanded attention in a way that had nothing to do with physical presence. Julliette. He turned and smiled, the same warm expression I remembered from childhood. Right on time. Was I expected? I had a feeling you might stop by. He gestured to the sitting area in the corner of his office, 2 leather chairs positioned around a small table that held a tea service. How was your morning? Productive. I settled into my usual chair, accepting the cup of jasmine tea he offered. Marcus called. I imagine he did. He's quite upset about the contract review. I'm sure he is. Daddy's voice was mild, conversational. Though I suspect his distress is about to increase considerably. Oh? He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a manila envelope, setting it on the table between us. Photos, he said simply. Time-stamped. Quite comprehensive. I didn't open the envelope, but I could guess what it contained. Marcus with his dream woman, probably entering and leaving whatever restaurant or hotel they'd chosen for their perfect evening. Maybe some shots of them together, holding hands, kissing, looking like the happy couple he'd apparently always wanted us to be. How did you? I have people, sweetheart. People who are very good at being in the right place at the right time. He sipped his tea calmly. The woman, incidentally, is Elena Vasquez. She's the chief operations officer at Meridian Industries. The blood drained from my face. She works for them? She works for them. More specifically, she was one of the key architects of the merger deal. Her signature is on most of the preliminary contracts. He paused, letting that sink in. Sleeping with a board member's wife while negotiating a billion-dollar deal shows remarkably poor judgment, don't you think? I set down my teacup with shaking hands. Marcus hadn't just cheated on me. He potentially compromised the biggest deal of his career by having an affair with someone on the other side of the negotiation table. The conflict of interest alone could void every contract they'd signed. Does Meridian know? They do now. I sent copies of the photos to their board of directors this morning, along with a detailed timeline of when the relationship began relative to merger negotiations. His voice remained perfectly pleasant. I also included some questions about whether this relationship influenced any of the terms Elena negotiated on Meridian's behalf. And their response? Swift and decisive. Elena was terminated effective immediately. The board has called an emergency session to review the entire merger from the ground up. They're particularly concerned about whether Blackstone Holdings was aware of the relationship and failed to disclose it. My phone was buzzing incessantly in my purse, but I ignored it. What happens now? Now? Now we see how well Marcus handles pressure. Daddy leaned back in his chair, studying me with the same careful attention he'd once used to teach me chess. Though I suspect he's about to have a very difficult conversation with his superiors. As if summoned by his words, my phone rang loudly enough to be heard across the room. The caller ID showed Marcus's office number. Answer it, Daddy said gently. Speakerphone. I accepted the call and hit the speaker button. Marcus's voice filled the office, high-pitched and desperate. Julliette. Thank God. Where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours. I'm with Daddy, I said calmly. We're having tea. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then, you're... What? Julliette, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Something terrible has happened. Someone sent photos to Meridian's board. Photos of me with Elena. They know about last night. Oh no, I said, managing to sound shocked. That's awful. It gets worse. They fired Elena and they're threatening to pull out of the merger entirely. They're saying there was a conflict of interest, that the relationship compromised the negotiations. Blackstone is furious. My boss is. Julliette, I think I'm going to be fired. I looked at my father, who was watching me with an expression of calm interest. I'm so sorry, Marcus. What can I do? I need your father to help me. I need Chen Dynamics to publicly support the merger, to vouch for Blackstone's integrity. If he could just make a statement, say that he has confidence in our company despite this misunderstanding. Marcus, I said slowly, are you asking my father to lie to protect your career? I'm asking him to save my career. Julliette, please. I made a mistake, okay? One stupid mistake, and it's going to destroy everything. I need help. I need your help. The desperation in his voice might have moved me yesterday. Today, it just sounded pathetic. Put him on the phone, Marcus continued. Please, just let me talk to him directly. I looked at Daddy, who nodded slightly. Hello, Marcus, he said, his voice carrying clearly across the speakerphone. I understand you're having some difficulties. Mr. Chen, thank you. Yes, we're having some challenges, but nothing that can't be resolved. This situation with Elena is just a misunderstanding. A personal matter that has nothing to do with business. I see. Daddy's tone was politely interested. And you believe that having an intimate relationship with a key negotiator on the other side of a billion-dollar merger is purely personal? It wasn't. We weren't. Marcus struggled for words. Look, I know how it looks, but nothing improper happened. The merger negotiations were complete before anything personal began. Marcus, Daddy said gently, I have time-stamped photographs of you and Ms. Vasquez together going back 3 months. Your first dinner was 2 weeks after Blackstone made their initial offer to Meridian. The silence that followed was deafening. I could practically hear Marcus's world crumbling through the phone. You had me followed? I had my son-in-law observed, yes. As a precautionary measure. But why? I've never done anything to harm your business interests. Haven't you? Daddy's voice hardened almost imperceptibly. You married my daughter under false pretenses. You spent 7 years treating her like a trophy wife while planning to leverage her family connections for your own advancement. And when you finally decided to cash in on that investment, you did so by publicly humiliating her with another woman. That's not. I love Julliette. This thing with Elena, it was just what, Marcus? Just a momentary lapse in judgment? Just a little fun on the side? Just the realization of a dream you've apparently harbored since your wedding day? I flinched to the ice in Daddy's voice. In 32 years, I'd never heard him speak to anyone with such controlled fury. Mr. Chen, please. I'm begging you. Don't let this destroy everything. I'll do anything, pay anything. Just help me fix this. There's nothing to fix, Marcus. You made your choices, and now you live with the consequences. Daddy paused. Though I am curious about one thing. Anything. Ask me anything. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Did you honestly believe you could use my daughter as a stepping stone to advance your career and I would simply overlook it? The question hung in the air like a sword. Marcus's breathing was audible through the phone, rapid and shallow. I didn't think. No, Daddy agreed. You didn't think. You saw an opportunity and took it without considering the cost. Very poor strategy, Marcus. Very poor indeed. Mr. Chen, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, just tell me what I need to do to make this right. What you need to do, Daddy said calmly, is learn to live with the consequences of your choices. The merger is dead. Your career at Blackstone Holdings is dead. Your marriage to my daughter is, I assume, also dead, though that's ultimately her decision to make. No, please, don't say that. Julliette, please, you have to understand. I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you. I've been quiet through most of this conversation, letting Daddy handle the business side while I process the emotional reality of watching my marriage die in real time. But Marcus's desperate plea finally prompted me to speak. You love me? I asked softly. Yes. Yes, absolutely. More than anything. Then why did you ask permission to spend the night with the woman you've been dreaming about since our wedding? Another long silence. It wasn't. It didn't mean. It meant everything, Marcus. It meant that for 7 years, you've been settling for me while dreaming about someone else. It meant that you never saw me as enough, just as a convenient stepping stone to the life you actually wanted. That's not true. Isn't it? Be honest, Marcus. When did you first research my family's business? Before our third date or after? The pause told me everything I needed to know. I see, I said quietly. And when did you first meet Elena? Before you started working on the Meridian deal, or after? Another damning pause. Julliette, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You married me for my connections, and you've been planning your exit strategy ever since you met someone you actually wanted. I stood up, walking to the window to look out at the port. The only thing I don't understand is why you asked permission. Did you think I'd be grateful? That I'd thank you for being honest about wanting someone else? I hoped you'd understand. I thought maybe we could work something out. Work something out, I repeated. Like what? An open marriage? A divorce with generous alimony? What exactly did you think I'd be willing to negotiate? I don't know. I wanted to be honest with you. I wanted to do the right thing. I laughed, the sound bitter even to my own ears. The right thing would have been not marrying me in the first place. The right thing would have been divorcing me before you started your affair. The right thing would have been treating me like a person instead of a business asset. Julliette, please. Marcus, I interrupted, my voice steady despite the tears I could feel building behind my eyes. I want you to listen very carefully. You're going to go home and pack your things. You're going to find somewhere else to stay while we figure out the divorce proceedings. And you're going to do it quietly and without drama, because the alternative is having this conversation become public knowledge in our social circle. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. And Marcus? Don't contact me directly anymore. Have your lawyer call mine. I ended the call and stood quietly by the window, watching cargo ships navigate the harbor like pieces on a giant chessboard. Daddy didn't say anything, just waited while I processed everything that had just happened. Are you okay? He asked finally. I think so. I turned back to face him. Actually, I think I'm better than I've been in years. Good. He smiled, the warmth returning to his expression. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. That took strength. I learned from the best. Yes, you did. He paused. What will you do now? Now? I considered the question. Now I think I'll finally use that trust fund to start my own company. Something completely separate from Chen Dynamics, something that's entirely mine. That sounds like an excellent plan. And Daddy? Thank you. For the photos, for the contract review, for all of it. I know you didn't have to get involved. Of course I did. His voice was gentle but firm. You're my daughter. Nobody hurts my daughter without consequences. I drove home that afternoon to find Marcus's BMW in the driveway and suitcases stacked by the front door. He was waiting in the living room, looking haggard and defeated in a way I'd never seen before. The merger's officially dead, he said without preamble. Blackstone terminated my employment effective immediately. Elena's been blacklisted from the industry. Her career is over. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Are you really? I considered the question seriously. I'm sorry that it came to this. I'm sorry that you made the choices you made. But I'm not sorry that there were consequences. He nodded slowly. I deserve this. I know I deserve this. But Julliette, what we had. It was real. Maybe it started for the wrong reasons, but I did love you. I do love you. I know you do, I said quietly. In your way, within your limitations, you love me as much as you're capable of loving anyone. But Marcus, that was never enough. Not for a marriage, not for a lifetime. He stood up, shoulders sagging with defeat. The house. Keep it. I never wanted it anyway. Too big, too expensive, too much like something you chose to impress other people. I looked around at the perfectly appointed living room, the designer furniture, the art we bought because it was supposed to appreciate in value. None of it felt like home. I'll take my personal things and my office equipment. Everything else is yours. Where will you go? I'll figure it out. He picked up his suitcases, pausing at the front door. For what it's worth, I am sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you, I'm sorry I wasted 7 years of your life, and I'm sorry I was too much of a coward to be honest about what I wanted from the beginning. I appreciate that. Will you? Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Maybe. Someday. But not because you deserve it. Because I don't want to carry this anger around forever. After he left, I walked through our house, my house now, I supposed, and felt nothing but relief. 7 years of trying to make myself small enough to fit into someone else's vision of my life, and it was finally over. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Julliette, this is Elena. I know you have no reason to want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Not just for what happened, but for how it happened. You deserved better. I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Some conversations weren't worth having. That evening, I opened a bottle of wine, the good stuff Marcus had been saving for a special occasion, and called my best friend Sarah to tell her everything. By the time I finished the story, we were both crying with laughter. "So let me get this straight," she said between gasps. "He asked permission to cheat, you said yes, and then your father destroyed his entire career as revenge?" "That's the basic outline, yes." "Julliette, you beautiful, terrifying woman. Remind me never to cross your family." "It wasn't revenge," I corrected. "It was consequences. There's a difference." "Is there, though? Is there really?" I considered that question as I hung up and got ready for bed. Was there a difference between revenge and consequences? Between justice and retribution? Between protecting yourself and destroying someone else? Maybe not. Maybe the line was thinner than I'd thought. But as I fell asleep in my empty house, surrounded by the ruins of my old life and the infinite possibilities of my new one, I found that I didn't particularly care about the distinction. Marcus had made his choice, and I'd made mine. Everything else was just details. The next morning brought flowers, 3 dozen white roses with a card that simply said, "Congratulations on your freedom. Love, Daddy." I put them in a vase on my kitchen counter and started planning my future. There was a world of possibilities out there, and for the first time in 7 years, I was free to explore all of them. Marcus had asked for one night with the woman of his dreams. I'd given him exactly what he'd requested. The fact that it cost him everything else? Well, that wasn't my problem anymore. Sometimes the best revenge is just stepping out of the way and letting people destroy themselves. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply say okay and watch the dominoes fall. And sometimes, just sometimes, being underestimated is the greatest advantage of all. I never did hear from Marcus again directly, though I saw his name in the business section of the newspaper 6 months later. He'd taken a job with a small firm in Phoenix, a significant step down from his previous position but apparently the best he could manage given his reputation. Elena, according to industry gossip, had moved back to her hometown in Texas and was working for her family's small accounting practice. As for me? I used my trust fund to start Chen Reynolds Consulting, specializing in corporate risk assessment and due diligence. My first client was a shipping company looking to evaluate potential merger partners. I was very, very good at finding problems other people missed. Business was booming. 2 years later, I was sitting in my corner office on the 20th floor of a downtown Long Beach high-rise, reviewing a contract that would make Chen Reynolds Consulting the exclusive risk assessment firm for 3 major shipping conglomerates, when my assistant buzzed through the intercom. "Ms. Reynolds? There's a Marcus Reynolds here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important." I set down my pen and stared out at the harbor view I'd chosen specifically because it reminded me every day of where real power came from. The same ships that had built my family's empire were still moving through those waters, carrying cargo that would feed families and build cities across the globe. "Send him up," I said finally. Marcus looked different. Smaller somehow, though he was wearing the same style of expensive suit he'd always favored. His hair was grayer at the temples, his face more lined, and when he walked into my office, he moved with a careful posture of someone who'd learned what it felt like to be watched for signs of weakness. "Julliette." He stood in the doorway for a moment, taking in the space I created for myself. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a desk made from reclaimed ship timber, awards and certifications covering one wall. "This is impressive." "Thank you." I didn't get up from behind my desk. "Please, sit." He chose one of the chairs across from me, the same setup Daddy had used when he'd shown me those photos. The symmetry wasn't lost on either of us. "You look good," he said. "Happy?" "I am happy. How can I help you, Marcus?" He shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. "I wanted to see you. To talk to you. It's been 2 years, and I..." He trailed off, running a hand through his hair. "I've been thinking about what happened. About us." "Oh? I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. I know that now. I've had a lot of time to think about it, and I understand why you did what you did." I leaned back in my chair, studying his face. "Do you?" "Yes. I hurt you, I used you, and you protected yourself. I don't blame you for that. I blame myself." He looked down at his hands. "The thing is, Julliette, I've spent these 2 years trying to rebuild my life, and I keep coming back to the same realization. Which is that I lost the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too stupid and selfish to appreciate what I had." The silence stretched between us. Outside, I could hear the distant sound of traffic, the low hum of the city going about its business. Normal sounds for a normal day, except nothing about this conversation felt normal. "Are you asking me something, Marcus?" "I'm asking if there's any chance, any possibility at all, that we could try again. That you could forgive me enough to give us another shot." I'd imagined this conversation dozens of times over the past 2 years. In some versions, I was coldly dismissive. In others, I was furious, letting him know exactly what I thought of his audacity and even asking. But sitting there looking at him, I felt mostly tired. Tell me about Phoenix, I said instead. He blinked at the change of subject. Phoenix? Your job. Your life there. Tell me about it. He struggled for words. It's fine. Smaller than what I was used to, obviously. We handle regional deals, nothing like the Meridian merger. The pay is decent. I have a small apartment near the office. Are you dating anyone? No. The answer came quickly, defensively. I haven't. Since Elena, I haven't been able to. I tried, once or twice, but it felt wrong. Like I was trying to replace something I could never replace. Elena, I repeated. How is she? I don't know. I haven't spoken to her since everything fell apart. I heard she got married last year to someone from her hometown. A teacher, I think. Good for her. Marcus leaned forward. Julliette, please. I know I have no right to ask this, but I need you to understand something. What I felt for Elena, what I thought I felt, it wasn't real. It was infatuation, fantasy. A middle-aged man's delusion about recapturing something he thought he'd missed. And what we had was real. Yes. What we built together, the life we shared, the partnership we had, that was real. I was just too immature to see its value until I'd thrown it away. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the harbor where my great-grandfather had first started loading cargo ships by hand. Do you know what I've learned about partnerships, Marcus? What? They require equal investment. Not just emotional investment, but practical investment. Mutual respect. Shared vision. I turned back to face him. We never had that. From the very beginning, you saw me as a resource to be managed, not a partner to be cherished. That's not true. Isn't it? When did you first look up Chen dynamics, Marcus? Was it before our first date or after? He went very still. Julliette. After. I know it was after, because I've seen the search records. You spent our entire first evening together evaluating me as a potential business asset, didn't you? Calculating what my family connections might be worth to your career. I was interested in you. Your background was part of that interest, but it wasn't the only thing. It was the primary thing. I returned to my desk, pulling out a folder I'd prepared months ago, hoping I'd never need to use it. I had my security team do a comprehensive audit of your digital footprint. Would you like to know what they found? His face went pale. What are you talking about? Emails, Marcus. Text messages. Browser history. Financial records. Phone calls. I opened the folder, though I didn't need to read from it. I'd memorized every damning detail. 3 days after our first date, you sent an email to your college roommate describing me as potentially very valuable professionally. A week later, you researched engagement ring costs and calculated them against your projected salary increases if you could leverage the Chen connection. Julliette, please, let me explain. 2 months before you proposed, you had lunch with your mentor at Blackstone and explicitly discussed how marrying me would open doors for your career. He advised you to lock it down quickly before I figured out what you were really after. Marcus was gripping the arms of his chair, his knuckles white. You're taking things out of context. Am I? Should I continue? Because there's more. So much more. I closed the folder with a snap. You spent 7 years of marriage treating our relationship like a long-term investment strategy. You planned your affair with Elena for months, waiting for the perfect opportunity to maximize your personal satisfaction while minimizing professional risk. That's not. I never intended. You intended all of it, Marcus. Every calculated move, every strategic decision, every moment of treating me like a business opportunity rather than a human being. I leaned forward. The only thing you didn't intend was getting caught. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stared at me with the expression of someone watching their carefully constructed world crumble for the second time. So when you ask me if there's any chance we could try again, I continued, my voice deadly quiet, what I hear is, would you be willing to resume your role as my professional asset while I continue to search for someone I actually want to be with? No, that's not what I'm asking. Then what are you asking, Marcus? Specifically. He took a shaky breath. I'm asking if you could ever love me again. If we could build something real this time, based on honesty and mutual respect. And what would you bring to this hypothetical relationship? What do you have to offer me now that you didn't have before? I know who I am now. I know what I lost. I understand what real love looks like because I've lived without it for 2 years. I almost laughed. You think suffering has made you a better person? I think consequences have made me a wiser one. Consequences. I tasted the word. Like losing your career? Your reputation? Your financial security? Yes. Those weren't consequences of your choices, Marcus. Those were consequences of getting caught. I stood up again, walking around my desk to stand directly in front of him. If Elena's CEO hadn't called you that morning, If my father hadn't had you followed, if the photos hadn't surfaced, would you have come home and confessed? Would you have ended your affair out of guilt and love for your wife? He didn't answer, but the answer was written clearly on his face. Of course you wouldn't. You would have continued your double life indefinitely, enjoying both your stable marriage and your passionate affair, telling yourself you were protecting my feelings by keeping me ignorant. I shook my head. The Marcus I married was capable of that level of sustained deception. The Marcus sitting in front of me now is the same person, just with fewer options. People can change. Can they? Or do they just learn to hide their true nature more effectively? I returned to my chair. Tell me, Marcus, what do you know about my business? Another jarring subject change. Your business? Jen Reynolds Consulting. What do we do here? Risk assessment. Due diligence. You help companies evaluate potential partners and investments. Exactly. I help people identify threats before they become problems. I look for patterns of behavior that indicate future risk. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Would you like to know what my assessment of you would be if you were a potential business partner? I'm not sure I want to know. High intelligence, strong work ethic, excellent presentation skills. But fundamentally unreliable. A pattern of prioritizing short-term gains over long-term stability. Demonstrated history of deception and manipulation. Tendency to view relationships as transactions rather than partnerships. I paused. Overall risk rating, extremely high. Recommendation, avoid at all costs. Marcus flinched as if I'd slapped him. That's not fair. It's completely fair. It's an objective analysis based on documented behavior patterns. But it doesn't account for growth. For learning? For genuine remorse. Remorse isn't a reliable predictor of future behavior. Data is. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. Would you like to see what else my security team found? On the screen was a detailed timeline of his activities over the past 2 years. Not just his professional life, but his personal life as well. Dating profiles. Restaurant reservations. Travel records. You've been watching me, he said quietly. I've been protecting myself. There's a difference. His eyes moved over the information on the screen, and I watched his expression change as he began to understand the scope of what I knew. 3 different dating profiles, I said conversationally. All listing your profession as investment consultant rather than the more accurate regional account manager. Several first dates where you casually mentioned your connections to major shipping companies without disclosing that those connections exist only through your estranged ex-wife. I never lied about my situation. You never told the complete truth, either. Pattern recognition, Marcus. You're still the same person, using the same strategies, just with a smaller playing field. He closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair, finally beginning to look defeated. What do you want from me, Julliette? Why did you agree to see me if you were just going to tear me apart? I wanted to confirm something. Which was? That I made the right choice 2 years ago. I stood up and walked to the door, opening it. Goodbye, Marcus. Please don't contact me again. He didn't move for a long moment. Then, slowly, he got to his feet and walked toward the door. As he passed me, he stopped. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I really did love you. In my broken, selfish way, I loved you as much as I was capable of loving anyone. I know, I replied. That's what made it so sad. After he left, I returned to my desk and picked up my phone, dialing a familiar number. Daddy? It's me. Marcus just left my office. Oh? How did that go? Exactly as expected. He wanted to reconcile. And? And I confirmed that some people never really change, they just become more careful about hiding who they are. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Are you all right? I'm perfect, actually. Seeing him again just reminded me how far I've come. Good. Though I'm curious, how did he know where to find you? That was an interesting question. My business address wasn't exactly a secret, but it wasn't something Marcus would have stumbled across accidentally. I'm not sure. But I have a feeling I'm about to find out. I was right. The answer came 2 days later in the form of a phone call from Elena Vasquez, now Elena Morrison, according to my caller ID. Mrs. Reynolds? This is Elena Morrison. We met once, though I'm sure you don't remember me fondly. I remember you. I wanted to apologize for giving Marcus your office address. He called me last week, said he needed to see you for closure. I thought maybe it would help both of you move on. And why did you have my office address? A pause. I've been following your career. Your company's reputation is impressive. I've been working for my family's accounting firm, but I've been thinking about branching out into corporate consulting. I researched several firms in the area as potential models. I see. Mrs. Reynolds. Ms. Chen Reynolds, actually. I went back to my maiden name professionally. Ms. Chen Reynolds. I want you to know that I regret everything about what happened 2 years ago. Not just the affair itself, but the way it happened. The timing, the deception, all of it. You deserved so much better. Yes, I did. I also want you to know that Marcus. He's not well. I mean, he's not dangerous or anything, but he's stuck. He can't seem to move forward. Every conversation I've had with him in the past 2 years has centered on you, on what he lost, on what he wishes he could have back. That's not my problem to solve. No, of course not. I wanted you to know that his visit wasn't about trying to manipulate you or use you again. I think he genuinely believes he's changed, that he's learned something from what happened. And what do you think? Another pause, longer this time. I think people like Marcus, people like me, too, if I'm being honest, we're very good at telling ourselves stories about our growth and transformation. But real change? The kind that actually sticks? That's much harder than we want to admit. It was the most honest thing anyone involved in this situation had ever said to me. Elena, I said, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? In your new life, with your husband? Yes, she said without hesitation. David is. He's kind. Patient. He knew about my past, about what happened with Marcus and the merger, and he married me anyway. He sees me as someone worth loving despite my mistakes. That's wonderful. It is. And it's also terrifying, because I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. I keep waiting to mess it up somehow, to revert to the person I was before. The person who had an affair with a married man while negotiating a billion-dollar deal? The person who was so focused on getting what she wanted that she didn't care who got hurt in the process. Her voice was quiet, thoughtful. I'm trying to be different now. Better. But some days I wonder if I'm just better at hiding my true nature. That's very self-aware. Is it? Or is it just another form of self-deception? I honestly don't know anymore. I found myself liking Elena more in this 5-minute phone conversation than I ever had when she was an abstract threat to my marriage. There was something refreshing about her willingness to sit in uncertainty rather than rushing to declare herself reformed. Elena, can I give you some advice? Please. Stop trying to figure out if you've really changed. Instead, focus on making better choices every single day. Change isn't a destination you arrive at, it's a direction you keep walking in. That actually helps. Thank you. And Elena? Don't give Marcus my contact information again. Whatever closure he's looking for, he's not going to find it through me. Understood. And Miss Chen Reynolds? Congratulations on your success. You've built something remarkable. After we hung up, I sat in my office as the afternoon light faded over the harbor, thinking about the strange turns life could take. 2 years ago, Elena had been my enemy, the other woman who had helped destroy my marriage. Today, she was just another person trying to figure out how to be better than she'd been before. Marcus, on the other hand, was still Marcus. Still calculating, still strategizing, still fundamentally unable to see other people as anything more than pieces in his personal game. The only difference was that his game board had gotten smaller. Some people learned from their consequences. Others just learned to be more careful about getting caught. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Drinks tonight? I have updates on the Peterson divorce case that will make your head spin. I smiled and typed back, absolutely. I have some stories of my own to share. As I packed up my briefcase and prepared to leave for the day, I caught my reflection in the office windows. The woman looking back at me was confident, successful, genuinely happy. She bore little resemblance to the uncertain wife who had folded laundry while her husband asked permission to cheat. That woman had said okay because she didn't know her own worth. This woman said no because she knew exactly what she was worth, and it was far more than Marcus Reynolds could ever afford to pay.